This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here. Alina, were you stressed about being alone in this Zoom room with just Jessica and not with me? I'm really
I was
sorry.
really scary. I really put her through it.
We are such hot mess express. I mean,
All good.
we are such
Here
a
for
complete
it.
shit show. Okay, well then, should we get started? Welcome, Jess.
Thank you so
podcast.
much. Thanks for
This
having
is
me.
a big day for As Long as I'm Living. A big day. Jess, you are our very first widow, and we are so honored to have you.
An honor. Isn't it so wild? Yeah, it's still just so insane. Even just hearing that word still feels like not my identity, even though it is. And
Yes.
it's just like it's now been over a year, but it's still just like, but yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
How do you prefer to? What are your lost pronouns?
No, honestly, I think my lost pronoun probably is widow. But yeah, it just like always like hits like a little like, ugh.
I
Because
know.
I think people picture widows as like old women who like
Yeah.
lost their husband in the war. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like that's like my like automatic go-to, or like someone who's like wears like mourning clothes for like the rest of their adult life.
Yes.
But
Well, we're called lost moms, and I think it's the dumbest name in the world. Like, I don't think it's a good. It's like it doesn't invoke any image.
what do you feel like would be a better fit?
Hot mess express. That would
I hear
be-
that. I think that makes sense. I feel like that should also be mine. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't know, Lena. Do you have any thoughts on it? Like, not an orphan, but I almost feel like an orphan, but the reverse.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you
Right.
think, Lena?
Yeah, it does feel like a reverse. Why can't I talk? Reverse orphan. Yeah, that is kind of what it feels like.
I feel like when I think of, it's interesting. When I think of orphans, it invokes just a very, like sad, lonely, completely lost and abandoned feeling, and it kind of feels more like that than a lost mom, which just
Mhm.
sounds to me like a mom who's lost.
Right. I didn't think that, but yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah,
I
and
hear
the kid
you.
is the one who's lost. I don't know. Whatever.
Right.
It's confusing. I agree. Right. It's the kid is the one who's lost. Okay. Let's
Anyway.
go back. So we're excited to have Hot Mess Express and Widow.
Yes, I derailed us instantly. This is good.
Welcoming Jess Walker of 5 Dot Post to As Long as I'm Living podcast today. Jess, would you like to take an opportunity to introduce yourself, your family, anything you'd like to share with the audience before we get into the meat of the interview?
Sure. Just like some context. So, my name is Jess Walker. I am on this podcast because I lost my husband. We were married in 2017. Just to give you some backstory of us, we've been together for a long time already. We met in college sweethearts. We got married, and 2 months after our wedding, or just under 2 months, we found out my husband had stage 3 esophageal cancer. Obviously the last thing in the world we expected, like completely blindsided. He just had like some acid reflux, a little weight loss, but he was like getting ready for our wedding anyway. So he was trying to lose weight anyway. So like there weren't enough red flags to really just like throw us. Cause I mean, we were young and healthy people. We were 26. So we just like didn't think a ton about it. And we found out, like right after our wedding, that he had esophageal cancer, which is a cancer that like people in their 70s and 80s get. It's like incredibly rare for a young person to get it, particularly to that stage. And we were living in New York at the time, and immediately went into like, we are going to throw everything we have at this. And we absolutely did. We did surgeries, radiations, treatments, clinical trials. We had a year in 2019 where he was pretty much symptom free. He was on an amazing clinical trial. And then it recurred. It recurred in 2018. And at that point, since it had metastasized, it was now classified as stage 4. And that means it's, they don't really use the word terminal anymore. They say it's like treatable, non-curable. So that was what we were looking at outside of a trial. And we did find that amazing trial that helped a lot, 2019. But it recurred again in 2020 and 2021 in his brain. And it's just a much harder place to treat because there's this thing called the blood-brain barrier. And it's just like not a lot of medications can get in there effectively. So we did everything we could. Again, like Tommy was the most incredible fighter. He was so positive, so just like going after it. And we really did everything that science had available for us. And then unfortunately we found out summer 2021 that there just weren't any other options available. And it's a really hard pill to swallow when it's like, you'll do anything and everything, but there just isn't any other things, you know, and that's just, it was just really, really hard. So he decided to kind of take back his storyline and decided he wanted to like pause that kind of medications. And we moved him into hospice at the end of 2021. And I lost him in November 25th of 2021. So since then, he wanted me to, we had always planned on moving to California together, but obviously like we needed to be close to his doctors and it just wasn't really an option for those years we were fighting cancer. So I, the next year, moved out here to California, to kind of just like reset, figure out who I am again. Like, I know you guys probably had the same experience. It's like, once that kind of thing happens, you're just like a completely new person. And yeah, that's where I'm at. So I've been spending the last year out here kind of just like navigating what grief looks like for me and what my next chapter looks like for me. And it's been a wild ride. So that's where I'm at this day.
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts going in different directions. But the first thing that I think of is actually something that I called Alina crying about a couple of weeks ago. And I was telling her how sad I was that I didn't get to say goodbye, how there was no process at all. He just went to sleep and died. And as I heard your story, it just sounded so like such a different experience. So you knew, you know, you had time to discuss what life might look after. You had time to have anticipatory grief, but also I'm sure like there was a partnership component where like you weren't, I don't know what it was like. I just know that I went to bed and I woke up in a brand new world with absolutely no plan. And I've always been like kind of envious, you know. I kind of feel like I wonder if we're envious of each other. I don't know. Like there's this question. You tell me. I think that there's a question that anyone who's lost anyone has asked. Would I rather have time to say goodbye? Or would I rather it be quick and painless?
I think that's a great question. It's really hard. I mean, you know, like when you've gone through this thing, it's really hard to like ever say like, I'm so lucky because it's like, I'm not freaking lucky. But truly, I do feel like whenever I think about someone who like loses a husband or a partner in a car accident or something like that, to me is unfathomable because, and it like in that situation that you guys were both in, it's like, I cannot imagine not having the experience that I had where I did get to have all that time to prepare. And although there's no good way to lose the love of your life by any means, we got to have these moments that I can't imagine I'd be able to go forward in the way that I had if we hadn't had those moments. And I mean, at the time when he was had his recurrence, at that point, once you're stage 4 for esophageal cancer, there's only 3% for 5-year survival rate. And although we were really never looking at ourselves as a statistic, we were clearly outliers because of age. So that was our mindset the whole time. We're like, we can beat this. 3% of the people do, but it's like, you always have that in your mind, knowing this is truly a long shot. And so it's like, I thought there was this, it's particularly painful when you know grief is coming and it's like, it feels like you're partially grieving what you haven't lost yet the whole time. And that is it is painful because you want to be in the moment and you want to like really savor what you're having, but it's like you can't help but like have that part of your mind also going of like, I need to remember this because I'm going to lose him, and that is a hard line to walk. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely, I'm not going to say pros. Like there's not pros or con, like, you know what I mean? But
as you're talking about that whole like sitting as it's happening and being like, I want to savor this, I want to savor it because I'm going to lose it. I wonder if, Judith, you can relate to that as a parent of a now living daughter. Like I can imagine you hold her and you're like, oh, I have to savor this just in case she dies. I have to savor this just in case she dies.
I do. And it comes up, one thing that comes up is her clothing, because Aiden, like, he only had 2 boxes of stuff his entire life. Mm-hmm. And so afterwards, like, his clothes were really important for me, and I touched them and I held them and I cried over them. And so now my daughter is growing out of clothes very quickly because she's a big kid, and I refuse to throw anything away or like so she just has boxes and boxes and boxes, because I'm constantly like, well, what if she dies? I'm going to need this. I'm going to want this. I'm trying to like anticipate if she died, what would be the things that I need from her? And I think it makes me a little bit, it's not only that I like hold her and I'm like, I need to remember this. It's also like, okay, Judith, I'm trying to protect myself. Like if something happens, how am I going to manage this? What are the things I'm going to need? I'm anticipating my grief and she's not dead.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think something that would be really interesting for us to discuss is, you're a widow, you haven't lost a child. We are lost parents, as we talk about. We don't love that term, and whatever, the terms are confusing. Right. We've lost children. We have not lost spouses to death. And I'm sure there's a lot that's really similar, and I bet there's a lot that's really different. And so, like, just the example Judith was just talking about, did you also like roll around in your husband's clothing after he died? Do you still hold on to all those things? Was it hard for you to pack them up? Like that is one thing that is so ubiquitous in the lost parent community. Is it true in the widow community as well? I don't know.
Yes, I had, an incredible partner in life, but also he was really preparing a lot of things that I didn't even realize he was doing for when he was gone. He was very generous in that way. And he used that time again, like as he knew it was like, I almost said wrapping up. What an insane thing to say. But like as things were wrapping up, he would have laughed at that. So it's fine. But it like he was going through things with me, and he was like things that I know that I would have kept. He was like, this is a thing that doesn't matter to me at all. Like, please do not hang on to this tennis ball for the rest of your life. Like, we're getting rid of it now because that's insane. And so it's like things that like actually meant stuff to him, and to be able to have those conversations. So I was able to like, he knew me. He knew I would keep every single thing for the rest of time. And he's like, some of this stuff, like, he's like, I literally got this for free off the street. Like, please do not keep it. That's crazy. Yeah. Like, don't drag this to all of your houses for the rest of your life. So he made it to where it was like things that were important to him, things that were important to me. Obviously, I kept some stuff that just after Sophie hadn't discussed, of course, I kept everything. But I think that was really beneficial for him to do. But yeah, of course, I have all of his stuff and all of his things. And the thing that I really valued that he did, and again, it's like, it's hard when you're actually going through it to do these things because you don't want to think that it's coming. So I would always be like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to look like go through hard drives and like stuff. But he had like Google Drives of everything set up. He had all of his photos backed up on hard drives. Like he did all of these things that like, I don't know how he had the strength to do that, because how do you look at what you're about to go through and prepare for someone else to like make their grief a little easier? I think that takes like a special kind of person. And I don't know if I could do it, but I'm so grateful in that. I did, when you were talking, Judith, I feel like you have gone through something that I'm scared to go through, in that like Tommy wanted me to keep living. He told me one of his things, he's like, he wants me to keep living and live big. And that includes like finding love again one day. And I'm not in that place where I want to do that yet. Honestly, I still feel married. And I know it's just bizarre, like to wrap your head around the whole thing. But the idea of putting myself in a position where I might meet someone and fall in love with them and then potentially lose them again, I can't fathom that. And I think it takes such courage. So I know that I'm not the interviewer, but I'm like, how was that just so scary to put your heart out there in that way?
I am so fucked up.
Yeah.
I am
like, how?
That is the truth. I am so deeply
Right.
fucked up. Here's the thing. Here's what I'll tell you. I think that the human spirit has a biological need to have hope. And I needed a child to have hope. I needed it. It wasn't like I wasn't thinking logically. The way I did it is I wasn't thinking logically. If I'd been thinking logically, I'd be like, this is a horrible idea. I had a horrible pregnancy. I was so stressed the entire time. I got admitted to the hospital towards the end, just like because I was having mental breakdowns. There was one day when I knocked this door of the room open with my foot. This was a crack in the middle of this door. I was like having panic attacks on my front lawn.
Right.
It wasn't pretty, but like I had to have hope that I could move forward and that I could be joyful again. And having a child was the only thing that was keeping me going. Like, and I don't think it was my brain telling me that. I think it was like my heart, and it's different. But Alina, are you going to say it's different than losing a spouse? Because I think it's like It's like a biological need to have something in your arms.
What I was going to say is like, I was not allowed. I wasn't able to try again because my marriage had also ended at the same time. So I also like, I understand what Judith's talking about when she says she has this, like, it was like this, I felt it and I couldn't do anything about it. This like excruciating need to hold something. You want to hold a baby. It has to be your baby. I would hold my friends' kids and just close my eyes and pretend like it was mine. Like you have this like biological thing, but you know, I also wound up having to start dating again. So I'm like a weird intersection between the two of you. And I know a lot of my motivation for going and starting to date again was I knew I wanted more kids and I had to do the dating first. So like to that point, I don't think I was ready to start dating. I don't think I was. Like, I don't know that there would have been a point where I ever was 100% ready to start dating. And I just like started doing it at some point and realized it wasn't terrible. I took breaks. You know, there would be a couple of weeks at a time when I was really sad and I would be like, okay, I'm not going on any dates. But yeah, I wound up meeting somebody and he's fantastic and it's been bumpy. Like I met someone faster than I was expecting to, which I think it sounds like that's something you're nervous about.
It is.
Like, do you think about the fact that he could die suddenly?
Yes, I do. I have this, like, it's so interesting because he, you know, he doesn't have like the kind of trauma I have, but like his fear is that I'm going to break up with him. And my fear is that he's going to keel over and die. Like, I am so terrified.
I check my dog's breathing like 100 times a day.
I do too.
And it's just like that. We didn't have children. Tommy and I didn't, and we actually hadn't planned on having them regardless. And I have no idea how that I would have navigated that. I mean, for the women that lose or men that lose their partners and then have kids, it's just like stronger. I have no idea how they do that. But having my dog, I'm just like convinced anytime like he does anything weird, I'm like, it's like he one time ate weed off the street. I live in Long Beach, California, and he was acting weird, and I was convinced he had a brain tumor. And I took him to the vet, and they're like, "It's definitely weed. He's just high." And I'm like sobbing because I'm like, he has a brain tumor, and you just haven't found it, because that's exactly what happened with us. They're like, "It's so unlikely," and I'm like, "It was unlikely for Tommy." And those things where it's like, I feel like you guys too. It's like statistically, it's so not likely to lose a child in that way. It's so unlikely for me to have lost Tommy in that way that it's like the anxiety I have about other things when people are like, oh, well, it's not likely that that's going to happen. I'm like, well, it could. It did.
There's that, I forget where I read it, but there's a phrase, statistics are only comforting until you become one. And I think that's the crux of it, right? Like I can say like only 1 in 320 babies dies of SIDS, but 100% of my babies died of SIDS. So like, those are not good odds.
Right.
And you know what? You know, like 10% of my most loved people are dead. So like, that's like a very high percent.
Right.
But I'll say that not only do I have anxiety about my child and my husband's dropping over at any point, I also have it about myself. And I don't know if I told this story on the podcast, but I was trying to get pregnant after Aiden died. And I would have I would feel a pain. And one day I spoke to my friend and she told me that her friend found a tumor on her ovary or a cyst on her ovary. And for some reason I had convinced myself that I had a cyst on my ovary, even though I didn't even know my ovary didn't hurt. I was so convinced. I went to the doctor and I was like, you need to do an ultrasound because I have a cyst on my ovary. And they're like, what symptoms do you have? And I was like, I have none. They're like, so why do you think you have it?
Judith, I'm not even joking. This exact thing happened to me like a month or two ago. I also had a cyst on my ovary. They told me it was definitely they said,
but you actually had one.
I had you're right. But I had it to the point where I was like calling. No one could give me my results, even though they weren't supposed to come in until the next week, but I wanted them like that day. I got to the point I had called and called and called, and people kept connecting me to where I had this sonogram company. I was like asking them if they could expedite my results. And I was like, I am spiraling. It was wild, but I was literally having panic attacks. And I was like, they're like, it's not likely it's cancer, but it can be. And it has been, so
you just don't know. And what if I didn't have a cyst on my ovary, but while they were in there, they found something else,
This is what I'm saying. There's too many things that can go wrong.
Katie's friend in Florida had a cyst on her ovary, so I must have had one too.
So what do you guys do for that now? I mean, like even like with Judith, with your daughter, like how do you keep your anxiety in check? Like have you figured out anything that works?
I mean, I take Zoloft.
Yeah, medicated
and honestly,
as well.
This is so okay. This is a new thing I've developed, and I think I say to myself like, okay, well, if she fell off the patio and died, I would probably just not even be a human anyway. So it doesn't matter. Like, not that it doesn't matter, but I'm like, my life would be over anyway. So it's like, I could be anxious about it now, but I won't really, I don't have to worry about the pain because I'm pretty sure I'll be dead too. I don't think that this is logical, but I do tell myself that I'm just kind of if something were to happen to her, that's okay because I won't be a human. So it doesn't matter. I'll let that Judith deal with that. And that Judith will probably be, chained up to a bed somewhere. So
you're just like, pain now or pain later. I choose pain later.
I don't know. I also I don't think I deal with it particularly well, but I do. One thing I do is my pediatrician is readily accessible to me at all times. And my sister's also a pediatrician. And she'll tell me, she'll say, Judith, look at your daughter. She is showing you that she is strong and that she is capable. She'll say, do you see her eyes? They're bright. Do you see her complexion? It's rosy. Mm-hmm. Do you see her muscles? They're working. She'll have me kind of do these body scans on her. And that sometimes helps. But honestly, I'm just really messed up. I don't think that I'm doing it well.
Yeah.
I don't.
Fair.
I'm not.
And from my perspective, without a living child, but with a new partner who I care about deeply, I worry he's going to die. There's a couple things. One is that I remind myself constantly, just like Judith was saying, he is alive right now. So any anxiety I'm having is legitimate. It makes sense why I'm anxious, but he actually is alive right now. I also talk to him about it all the time. And I actually joke about this. I'm like, listen, if you are going to die suddenly, it has to be after we've made embryos. Okay. Because
I mean, but honestly,
because I cannot date again.
Right. If I have a partner, they're going to have some dark humor because there's no, I always have to talk it out and it always has to be, to that level. It's they're going to have to be along for the ride or it's not going to work.
100%.
I feel like we should just say how we met you.
Yeah.
First.
Oh, right.
The reason we want to talk to you about what to say when you don't know what to say, because your company, your, what do you call it? Stationery?
Greeting cards, yeah.
A greeting card company, 5.com.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
5.post. So it's
5.post.
Yeah, it's called 5.post because when you go through cancer, a lot of times when you have radiation, you have to get these tattoo dots to line up the lasers. So it's always in the same spot. So Tommy had to get 5 tattoo dots and he was just annoyed about it. It was just one more thing that he didn't have autonomy over on his body. And so then I also got 5 tattoo dots on my arm to solidarity. And that just it felt kind of the message of my business is keeping people connected and the support that you can give people through cards. And so yeah, that's why it's called 5.post. It's confusing when you tell people it out loud because they always do it 5 period post, and then it like never is found. So in hindsight, I could have made that clearer, but I loved the message, so we went with it.
Yeah. And what it is greeting cards. I would say like for what you don't, when you need something to say but you don't know what to say. Right. That's actually what we wanted to talk to you about today. But I mean, I feel like I could talk to you all day long. But I want to explain how we met. So why don't you? I don't know who should share the story. Should we say it from our side or should we say it from your side?
I'll tell a story because I think I was the least involved in this. So Judith was given a candle from a lovely friend, and it had a message on it that we really liked. It said, actually, Jess, do you want to say what it is? You probably know it off the top of your head.
It says, I know you're fine, totally fine, absolutely fine. But if you're ever a little not fine, I'm here for you.
Yeah. So Judith got this candle as a gift, and we thought that message was so cute and just like so real. Like that's like what we want a grief supporter to say to you when you're grieving. And it's such a legitimate feeling to be like, no, I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine. And then of course, like, you know, sometimes you're just not fine. So we loved that candle, and Judith took a picture of it and sent it to me. And then I was like, this is so cute. I'm going to post it on the feed. Because, you know, we hadn't posted anything in a couple days or whatever. So I posted it, and then we got a message from you, and you were like, hey, those are my words. We didn't know you at all.
It wasn't just her words. It was like literally the art.
It was a copy and paste.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess, first of all, I'm wondering, how the heck did you find that?
Second of all, I feel horrible.
Oh my gosh, you shouldn't. Okay. So from my perspective, that was the third time that my art had been plagiarized that week. So like I found it because I've had, like just somebody who's following my account had on Monday or like earlier that week sent me an Etsy account that had copied like 5 of my cards, and they'd been selling them, and they had like 2,000 reviews. Like they had just been making money off my cards for I don't know how long. So that was like already like just a kind of punch in the gut because it's so fresh. I mean, it's like your work and it's your words and it's your business, it's your heart. And it's like, right. So when people do that, it's just like, I know it happens all the time, but normally I just reach out and I'll say like, hi, could you take this down? Like this is, you know, personal intelligence infringement, like whatever. And they normally take it down. These people did not. And it's like it was like a whole thing. So by the time I saw this candle, and another friend, or like another person who follows me on Instagram, they sent your picture to me, and I was just like, oh my God, it's happening everywhere. But I'm so glad that I felt like I was like a little bit more sassy than I typically am because I was over it. So I'm really glad that we were able to like reel it back in because I was like, I was like, please, could you please take this down? This is my work. But I love that it ended up happening in this way because then you're like, wait, we actually like are kind of doing the same thing. And I was like looking at your profile and I was like, wait, this is actually like a really cool thing they're doing. And then you're like, wait, we have a podcast. And so it ended up working.
No, but I think it's even crazier though. Jess, this is what's so crazy. Jess and I have a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And
we do?
Yeah.
Which one?
Do you know Mel?
Oh, right. Yeah.
She's my neighbor, but like my really good friend. I'm at her house twice a week, if not every day. They feed me, they water me, they love me, they take care of me at her house. And she told me about you guys, and she showed me the video of your ceremony at the park. Mm-hmm. I think it's because, and Mel listens to the podcast, so she'll hear this. I think she was trying to show me that like she'd been impacted by loss in her lifetime too, and she could, like identify, she could support me through this. And she had like, we spent a long time talking about Tommy. Like, I don't know. Aww. We probably spent an hour, 2 hours. Like, we spent a long time talking about, because I think that was one of the first people in her life that had died young. And now here I was in her life, and I had, this dead baby. And I think, like, she spent so long talking about you that when I was on your page, I was like, this person, her story, like, just sounds so familiar. I couldn't believe it. Like, the lost world is so tiny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We find each other.
Totally. Oh my gosh. That makes me happy, but it's just so nice to hear that he made an impact. And
not only did she make an impact, he was telling me about, like the whole live big thing. She was like, Tommy wanted everyone to live big. He was like this guy at camp. He had like this outgoing personality. He was so fun. Like she was like telling me all of these things about him in a way that I could really like picture who he was as a person. And his life and his message, like, it translated to me. And I don't know him at all. but his life really had an impact. And one of the things that I was thinking about is when I went to the dentist randomly, and I went to the dentist randomly with someone I went to high school with, and she told me, she's like, when I heard Aiden died, I cried. I was like, how could you have cried? Like, you and I aren't really friends. And also you never met him. And she was like, Judith, his life impacts people. Like, his loss mattered. And at the time I was like, how, like, I thought she was just saying that. But I think it's good for us grieving people to hear that people from all corners of the earth, whether you know them or you don't, our loved ones matter. And they do have an impact. And people talk about them and care about them. And people pass along the message of their lifetimes to other people who you don't know, and their legacy lives on, you know?
Right.
And when I'm on the receiving end of that comment, I never believe it because it just seems absolutely crazy to me. But it was so, like, I don't know, it feels good to know that I'm being honest and genuine with you. I'm not making that up. And so, I don't know, it would feel really good for me to hear that.
Yeah, it did. It did.
I was getting emotional as you were saying that, because I think that is a big difference between baby loss and adult loss, I guess you can call it. Obviously, everything's horrific, but losing a baby, especially losing a baby during COVID, like, so many people didn't get a chance to meet him. And I think part of the reason we started this podcast was because we wanted a place to, like, continue to honor them and share their story. And, like, grief Instagram, dead baby Instagram, as we call it, is, like, such a nice community. There are all these dead babies that I know, I'm using air quotes.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to list all of them, but, like, nobody actually knew them. And so I can imagine it feels really good to hear somebody who actually, like, knew your husband.
Absolutely. Tommy did, he was the theater director at that summer camp in Georgia for, I think he did it 5 years, over 7 years. He was there like 5 summers. And yeah, that whole group at Camp Barney are just incredible. They have been so supportive, and they were just so, like, they loved Tommy so much that just having them reach out, and they'll send me videos, and they'll send me, like, tell me stories I've never heard. And, like, because he always went away, like, I was only there one of the summers.
I'm so jealous. Alina, are you so jealous? I'm so jealous. Are you jealous?
So jealous.
You know, as I hear your experience, I really am jealous.
Yeah.
I really try to go back and forth and say, like, no, but sudden is they shouldn't be in pain, whatever. But I think I realized I kind of got the short end of the stick in his death also.
Do you feel a responsibility to, like, carry his legacy? Is that something that weighs on you? Because I know that is something that I really feel, and I'm curious how that impacts you as a widow.
Yes, absolutely. Some days it feels like just so easy and so wonderful, and, like, I love it. And then some days I feel like I'm not doing it well enough, and that, like, really spirals me. And there was, like, one time that I couldn't get to an event that was honoring him. It was like a theater event. We both did theater for a long time, so they were doing, like, a show in his, like, honor, and I couldn't get there because of snow, and it just, like, crushed me, because I was like, I'm not doing a good job. And there was one anniversary, I can't remember what it was. It was either, like, our dating anniversary or, like, his something, like, some special date that was this past year, and I had nothing in me to, like, I could not post about it. It was just like, we share a lot, and, like, some days it was just like, it was too hard. I couldn't even do anything. And I called my mom, and I was like, people are probably going to think, like, I'm not thinking about Tommy or honoring him because I'm not, like, sharing about it. And she's just like, you can't let that be something that you feel. I mean, it's like, and that is hard. And I don't know. It's like, everyone's like, you just are like, should I have a nonprofit in his name? Should I, like, what is the right amount of, you know, like, it's like
the nonprofit, like, Alina, I told you.
Like, everyone says, like, these things, and, like, you should start a fund or scholarships, and, like, and there are some of those things. And it's like, I think we are doing it, like, his family and I and my family, like, we are doing a great job keeping his, like, energy and spirit and history alive. But yeah, it's something that sometimes is heavy because I want to do a good job, but I also don't want it to consume me. And it's like, what's that line?
Do you feel like your business, do you feel like that is a way that you're honoring him?
Yeah.
Well, tell us more about your business. So
I started my business, like, right after he was diagnosed. So it'd been going for several years, but there was one point where we were in hospice, and he's like, my death's really going to be that thing that tips this business up and over. It's gonna really happen now. And I was just like, Tommy, you can't say stuff like this. Yeah, I started my business after his diagnosis. We were both musical theater actors, and I couldn't obviously travel for work, which was like majority of what I was doing, like tours and stuff, because I wanted to be with him and like help him through this. He was doing treatments every single day. So it was like a full-time job for especially that first year. So I got a job at a gift shop down the street from our apartment just so I could be nearby, kind of help pay medical bills. We were like on unemployment. It was dicey. But I really loved the paper goods and the greeting cards that were there, and just like we were having dinner one night and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if there were like funny, irreverent cancer cards, because we were receiving such beautiful cards, but they felt like sympathy cards rather than like encouragement cards. And we were like young and in the fight, and we weren't looking to be like, so sorry, like essentially like sorry for your loss, even though that's not where we were at. Like we were very much still fighting this, and we're not thinking that we were losing. And I was like, we need cards that young people or just people in that mindset would actually like to receive, and it would be encouraging and maybe like make them laugh, because cancer is so heavy anyways that maybe you're having like a really light day and you receive a card that's like, so sorry that for your loss, and it's just so like,
sorry you're gonna die soon, big bummer.
Right. So I was like, I want a card that's like, wow, cancer having sucks, like this is horrible, I'm so sorry, but like, and then they like, it makes you laugh and you're like, yeah, it does suck. Because there was one the kind of thing that sparked the idea is we had told some of our friends, and they were all like super supportive and like, just like, you're gonna get through this, and it was all so sweet. But there's this one guy that Tommy called, and he's like, that is so shitty, like he's like, that's the shittiest thing I've ever heard. And we were like, it is, like that was the thing that hit the most. We're like, it, like, I think it's because they're acknowledging like how bad it is, as opposed to like, let's fight, let's use these warrior words. And we're just like, yeah, it is freaking shitty. Yeah. And so like, that was like one of my first cards, was like, I'm so sorry, this is so shitty, but like, I'm here. And
I love your cards. They make me laugh so hard. And I guess I look at them as, I don't know, I guess I would just say like, if you're they're just like cards for the shitty world. Like I like, it's not necessarily only for cancer. It's like, just a card, because sometimes life is really hard.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they did start out as like cancer specific. And as soon as I realized, like, because it just felt like it was like obviously a community that hadn't been served in this way, and I wanted to help that specifically. But as I grew, I was like, there's definitely so many other scenarios where this kind of more empathy than sympathy support is valuable. And so that's when I branched out to more like other things besides cancer.
Well, when we accidentally posted your work, and then we had you on our podcast. By the way, I just have to say, like, we felt really bad, and that was the second time it happened to us that week. Like, something similar had happened to us earlier that week, where we kind of thought, like, well, this isn't our fault. Like,
right?
I'm sorry. We're like, now this lady hates us, and we're sorry.
I thought you guys handled it so well. I was telling my friends last night, I was telling them I was coming on this podcast today, and I told them the story, and I was like, but they really like nailed how it was handled, because you guys tagged it and you were like, this is not her, or this is not
our words.
The words, but you were basically like, if you want to see like where these cards actually come from, like here's her account. And I was like, that's so helpful, because they were like, did they just take it down? And I was like, no, they did this, which I actually think was much better.
Yeah, well, we loved it.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I love this message, and now here's where it actually is coming from. I thought that you guys handled it so well. And also,
I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if the other woman felt that way.
The other woman did not feel that way. I can confirm.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people are really mean, like when you reach out, but it's normally people who actually stole the work, and you guys didn't. So it's like totally different scenario.
It was so weird, because the other thing, we were coming from like, we're not making money off our account. We're just like we just have dead babies, and we just like, post random shit on our Instagram. Like, and so this other person like really was acting as though like we were like stealing, and this is obviously like, that's where you started it from, but like very quickly you were like, oh my God, like, so sorry. Like, but this person like really was just like, you really shouldn't do this kind of thing. And we were like, what do you do? What?
The point is just to say that once we secured the interview, I called Alina and I left her a voice note. I was like, here are all the cards I wish I had. We have to ask. I think I want to call her Jess.post. I'm really bad with names.
I love it. Jess.post.
Jess.post. I was like, here's what we need to ask for Jen. Listen, I want to play it for you because I have a special request. And again,
Okay.
if you would, we'll support you even if you don't do this. But these, of course, whatever you want. But these are from a lost mom. These are the cards that I think we need.
Let's hear it.
Hi, I have a few ideas that I wanted to just share before I forgot them. So when we talked to Jess LMNOP card lady, I want to tell her that we need the following cards. I want a card to a dead person, like a dead baby birthday card. I want a card that says, you're 1 year older and the same. You're older and still dead. Okay, that's number one. I want a birthday card for dead babies. Number two, I want a card for Mother's Day and Father's Day, but when your baby is dead. I don't know how to get that, but Mother's and Father's Day cards. And then number three, I want her to make a thank you card, but like thank you for the times when you really don't want to say thank you, like thank you for sending me a meal, but I wish you never did. You know what I mean? Thank you for taking care of me when I was in the shed and on the ground. That's what I want. A thank you card for people who showed up for you and sent you meals and sent you pajamas for when you were grieving. Okay.
That's so good. Honestly, yes. Like I'm giving you no royalties, but I will make those cards for you.
Perfect. She does not need the royalty.
That is, Alina, I make myself laugh. That was such a funny voice note. I sent that to you, by the way, as I was getting into the shower. I was like butt ass naked and I was like, oh, I had a thought. But this is actually a good idea because I buy my son a birthday card every year for his birthday. And actually, Alina and I do this thing on Instagram where we'll go to the aisle, the birthday card aisle. We'll open cards and we'll be like, this one says, you're so brave, you're so funny, you're so courageous, can't believe you're two.
I've loved watching you grow this year.
And it's so hard to find a birthday card. Obviously. It is so hard to find a birthday card for a dead person. Nothing fits. So that is my special request. But I try to find them and it's such like an emotionally taxing, exhausting event going to the store. Mother's Day cards too. Like it's just emotionally exhausting task. And to have a place where someone like has a good sense of humor about the fact that this is a dead baby birthday card, that would be awesome.
I'm so down. I am so down. I have this year I did like a card for Mother's Day for like a kid whose mom had died. Aww. But now we need to we need to flip it. No, they are great ideas, and I'm definitely going to be acting on those. And particularly the thank you notes. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I have I actually got thank you notes made with his picture on it, and then I never sent one because the entire time I was like, what am I gonna say? Thank you.
Right. And that's our tagline. Don't know what to say. Let us know.
Exactly. Alina, did you write thank you notes? No. What did you do about that?
No, I had grand plans. Like I was going to write thank you notes, and then I just never did it.
Right.
I never did it. I had other things to do, like lie on the floor.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, if they got a text message back, that was a lot.
We only have a couple more minutes, but what would you say to someone who's like, I just don't know what to say? If let's say, their friend comes to them saying they have a spouse with cancer or whatever, a parent with cancer, whatever it is, what was your advice?
My advice is, as hard as it is, like I feel like we can often hit like paralysis where we are so scared to say the wrong thing, we don't say anything at all. And I think that's worst case scenario. Yes. So I would say like, honestly, you could say the wrong thing, but I'd say like the fact that you're making an effort to reach out and like let them know you're there for them is going to trump anything that you might say that's awkward. Like, I don't think I've ever received a card from someone, even if it said words that I was like, that doesn't really hit right, where I was like, F that person, like they suck. Yeah. Like, I'm always going to be like, you know what? Even if it's like take it or leave it, but regardless, it makes an impact on me, knowing that person thought of me, decided to reach out. So I would say like, don't let your fear of saying the wrong thing paralyze you from saying anything at all. And sometimes like, you don't have to have the most profound thing to say. It can be a joke. It can be something light, and that can lead into actual support and connection and conversations. So don't feel like you have to say it all in that very first thing. It can be something so short. I don't know if you guys found this too, that I thought it was just so helpful when people would text me and say like, hey, thinking of you, you do not need to respond, but I'm here when you're ready.
Yes.
Saying that was the thing that like saved my life. Cause like when you get a text, you like feel this pressure of like, I need to respond. I need to reach out. I need to let them know. But when they let you off the hook immediately, and then you can respond later when you have the energy, that was the most helpful thing. Yeah. Or never. And that's totally fine. They say that too, where it's like, no need to respond. Don't worry if you never text back. Like that is so helpful.
I'll just put a shout out here to an episode we did where we talked about this. It's called I Can't Imagine. I will link it in the description. But anyway.
What is, I'm curious about how you feel about working in the grief space. Do you feel like it has kept you connected to him, or do you feel like you're stuck and you can't move forward because you continuously live in this sad grief space, or just grief space in general?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I didn't know how I was going to feel till I actually did it, because like, again, the majority of my cards are cancer cards. And I was like, before Tommy died, I was just imagining what it would be like. And I'm like, how in the world am I going to be sending cancer cards? Like that's going to be so impossibly hard. And I did think that was going to be the case. And it ended up that I had kind of a flipped reaction where it's like every time I send like a OMG, you're cancer free card or something like that, where it's like your treatment's done, whatever, I thought it would just like crush me. But instead it feels like this like little rebellion where I'm like, hell yes, like someone's doing it, like good for them. And it really does feel like kind of like Tommy's spirit and his humor. Like you said, like it does feel like I'm carrying his, because some of these cards are literally his jokes that like he thought of and was like, you should make this into a card. So it's like, it has felt more like a rebellion against cancer than something that feels heavy. Because in like the scheme of things, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. Like I do donate a portion of the proceeds of my cards to cancer research, but I personally am not going to really impact that. But if I can like make the fight lighter for some of these people going through cancer, that just feels really light to me actually. And it just like, I didn't anticipate that. And there's been a handful of days where it is too hard and I just like, you know what, don't work that day. Sorry everyone if your card was delayed, but like it's rare. And it's like and I really like listen to what I need, but I have therapy, I'm medicated. I do feel like if it was too heavy, I wouldn't do it. And Tommy said the same thing. He's like, he loved the idea of me continuing it because he saw how much heart I put into it and that like how much I loved it. But he was like, but if it's too hard, like feel free to just do something completely different, like pivot. And if one day it becomes too heavy, I will. But at this point, it really doesn't feel like that at all. It feels light.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!